one way of simplifying polynomials, okay, is something that we call combine like terms. Okay, so if I ask you to simplify a polynomial, that means that I want you to combine all the like terms. Now, combining numbers, okay, like we said, is very easy, or is very basic, what we may call it. It just means we're adding or subtracting. Okay? So it's just adding or subtracting. When we combine terms with variables, it's a little more difficult, but again, all we're going to do is we're going to add or subtract numbers. Okay, so we're just adding and subtracting numbers, but we have to make sure that the terms that we are putting together, okay, the terms we're putting together, have the same value to them, or have the same variable to them. Okay, so when we combine like terms, that's what we're going to be doing. And when we're simplifying polynomials, we're just putting all the like terms together. Now, the first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that the combination and exponents of the variables is the same. Okay, so the combination and exponents of the variable need to be the same, meaning that we have to have the same letter and the same amount of letters. And when I say that, how many we're multiplying together, not how many we have as a coefficient, but how many we have all multiplying together. And so that's going to be the exponent. So that'd be something like squared. Okay, so that means that there are x times x. If we just have an x by itself, that just means it's 1x by itself. Okay, so then what we do is we add the coefficients. Okay, which is the number that we have in front. Okay, so here we would have like a 1 in front there. Here we have a -3. Here there's a 3. These are ones from that previous video there. So we add the coefficients, or that number, together. And remember that there can be both positive and negative coefficients. Okay, so both positive and negative coefficients can be in there, and we have to make sure that when we're putting that together, okay, when we add positives and negatives, it's a bit of a different way of adding. We're going to go through how we do that in a couple of examples, but it's very important that we understand how to add and subtract positives and negatives. So let's take a look at this example here. Okay, and this is on the next side. I just flipped it over there. We want to combine all of our like terms. Now, when it comes to this here, we have to take a look at the variables. And what we have is a multi-termed polynomial. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 terms. This is a 6-term polynomial, and we want to try to put together all the like ones to try to make it simpler. Okay, if we can, we want to. If we can't, we just leave it the way it is. But we want to try to make sure that we put together all of our like terms. So let's look at the variables that come here. This first one here has a variable of x. This one has a variable of x squared. This one has none, so I'm just going to put a slash through there. This one has an x. This one has none. There's no variable, so I'm going to put a slash. And this one has just an x. Okay, so we have to kind of look at what is the variable that has to do with the term. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put together all of the ones that have x together, all the ones that have just x squared together, and all the ones that have nothing or no variable. And we're going to put those all together and then into individual terms, and then put those terms back into a polynomial. So let's start with the x squared ones. Okay, so this is just as a reference here. There's only one that has x squared, so we're just going to take 4x squared, and so this becomes 4x squared. It doesn't change because it's just by itself. It's all by itself, so we're not having to add it to anything. Now let's take a look at all the x terms. We have a 3x, we have a -5x, and we have a 1x. Now if there's nothing in front of the x, we know that it's a 1. Okay, so we have to be careful about kind of remembering that coefficient is a 1. If it's a positive, it's a positive 1. If it's minus, it's a -1. So let's just be careful about that. So now what we have here is we have a +3, a -5, and a +1. Okay, so we have 3 positives and 1 positive, which is 4 positives, and we have 5 negatives. Okay, what that means is that the negatives outweigh the positives, and because we're adding them all together, it's going to be more or less 3 minus 5 plus 1. You can think of it that way as well, or 4 positives and 1 negative. So this is going to be negative 1x, or we don't need to write in the 1, we can just do negative x. Both of those work. I would not have a problem with a negative 1x. That is not a problem. If that's the way that you need to do it just to be able to see it a little better, by all means go for it. Okay, so here we had the 4x squared, we have our negative x, and I'm just going to use that one right there, and then finally we have the ones that don't have the variable, and this is what we call a constant. So it's just a number with no variable to it, and I'm just putting a slash. It's a slash, there's nothing there. So here we have a negative 2 and a positive 4. Now negative 2 plus 4, okay, we have 2 negatives and 4 positives. Okay, one way to think about it is that these 2 negatives cancel out these 2 positives and the negatives, and we're left with just 2 positives. So this is the same as plus 2, okay, or positive 2. Now we take our resulting ones and we get 4x squared minus x plus 2. Now you notice this is a positive, and because of that we don't need to put in the plus sign. We can just leave it as 4x squared. This would be our simplified polynomial. This and this have the exact same value to them. Okay, they have the exact same value to them, but we're just writing it in a bit of a simpler way so we can understand it a bit more as well. Now another way that I like to write in my variables in descending order, so I have like x squared, x, and then nothing, or the constant in there. That doesn't matter. You can do it in any order as long as this one's positive, this one's negative, and that one's positive, because that's what we had right here.